Hello Wolfpack, I'm doing a video on Chainlink again. I've done Chainlink before in the past, only about a month ago, but I want to make an updated video on this because I've just identified a brand new fractal on Chainlink that I haven't actually seen before. I didn't see in my last analysis, I didn't seem to pick it up, and you know, I was just scouring through the charts this morning and I've got a new fractal on there. So for all of you guys who like Chainlink, this video is for you. I made my Chainlink prediction of around 150 USD in the last video. That's going to be changing slightly based off this fractal. And I want to see how closely this fractal actually plays out, because Chainlink, obviously, if we look at CoinMarketCap, right, it was around in the last bull market. It was actually around. It just gathered basically no attention. No one really knew about Chainlink back then. And in this bull market, it's just exploded. And it didn't even start in this bull market, right? It started exploding in 2019, 2020, way before the bull market even started. We can see here in August and September 2020, it's just taking off from that point already. So, you know, this is clearly a coin that has gathered a lot of attention within the market, you know, and preemptively as well. So it's known to move independently, at least a little bit, and that's what I like about Chainlink, right? So what we can see on the chart, and we're just going to get straight into it here. What we can see on the chart on Chainlink is, you know, pretty normal stuff, pretty basic stuff we're seeing in this bull run. We're seeing a run up, drop down in May, cup and handle type formation, and a break upwards. I'm not going to be looking into cup and handle formations because I've done that in my last like 5 videos, right? Most coins right now are in cup and handle formations. I've tried to outline the ones that look particularly good in my last few videos, and I think I've done that quite well. So if you want to draw a cup and handle on Chainlink, go for it. I'm not going to be doing that in this video. I want to be looking at something a little bit more interesting, right? So what I can actually see on Chainlink, and what I've noticed, is that this entire construction, I'll draw it out for you. This entire construction here to the move up looks actually very similar to the entire construction from the May drop down to the current price action, right? So we've got this area looking very similar to this area, right? Obviously this hasn't played out yet, so we can actually lower that down so you guys understand it better. This area looks very similar to this area, right? We had a drop down in both areas. We had some sort of weird, you know, W formation. We had the W formation here, and we had some sort of W formation here, right? We had a move upwards. We had a couple of peaks, right? So we had 1, we had 2, we had 3. All right, we had 1, 2, 3. Sorry about the letters here. And then we moved downwards in both charts. We moved downwards here, we're moving downwards, and we moved downwards here. And now what we're seeing is whether this fractal is going to play out perfectly. So if we remove all of that, we can get a good look at this fractal. So where we are in the fractal is basically, you know, either at this region here just before a breakout, we could actually say we're over here just before a breakout to the upside, or we're back here just before a drop and then a breakout to the upside. So essentially what this fractal is telling us, and I'm going to use a bunch of indicators in a second. I just want to get you guys up to date with what this fractal actually is. It's telling us that we're either going to be breaking to the upside right now, or going to be dropping down one more time and then breaking up to the upside. All right, so if we actually grab the fractal and take a bar pattern from the peak in August 2020 to a peak here in February 2021, and we try and apply it as best we can. I've kind of outlined where it would go. We try and apply it as best we can to the price action right now. And we can see that, let me just shrink this down to make it look a bit more reasonable here. What we can see is that it lines up pretty well, right? It doesn't work perfectly, but it certainly lines up pretty well. And if we actually just stretch it a little bit more, you know, fractals aren't meant to be perfect. I want to say that just before, you know, we get into this. Fractals aren't meant to be perfect, right? They can't be perfect because there are different market environments. At the end of the day, there are different market environments, but you can tell that it is a very similar move. If we bring down the visibility here, what we can see is that it's actually really similar, right? We saw the drop down. We saw a little bounce here. I'll label this out. We saw a little bounce here before going lower. We saw a bounce here before going lower. We saw some sort of W formation, right? We saw a W formation here. We moved upwards, having 3 separate peaks. We had 1, 2, 3. And we had 1, 2, 3. We moved downwards. We had a peak on the way down. We had a peak on the way down here. We're currently seeing a secondary peak, right? And this would suggest, take away all these circles, this would suggest that we will be heading downwards one more time. right? One more time before a pump upwards, right? So from the fractal, what we can kind of understand, if we actually take a measured move from where we are meant to be on the fractal, we can see that we moved down around 50%. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that was just a bad wick. So if we take it again and measure it to where the most of the wicks are, 36%. So if we measure 36% downwards from our recent peak at 29 USD, we can see that this fractal would bring us to a price point of around 18 USD before moving upwards drastically. All right. That's interesting because 18 USD puts us right in the middle of a critical major support area that we have on Chainlink. Whether we actually go down or not will be an interesting question to answer. What we can see on Bitcoin currently is large consolidation around the 54 to 56K region, suggesting that we might be topping out for the time being and coming back down for a higher low. Altcoins are already lagging massively to Bitcoin at this current point in the market. And if Bitcoin actually drops and comes down for a higher low, altcoins will drop exponentially more than Bitcoin due to the fact that there isn't much confidence in altcoins right now. So we could actually be seeing something like that play out where we drop down into this support region again. Ideally, we don't want to see that play out. Ideally, we want to keep our pattern of higher lows by making a higher low above 20 USD. But as I said, fractals don't need to play out perfectly every single time. So even if we drop down to around 22, for example, 22 USD, we keep the higher low pattern and then we move upwards. That's essentially the same thing. We'll still be following that fractal. They're not percentage-wise always very accurate, but what we can see on this fractal is that eventually, when we see that breakout to the upside, whether it's now or after one more correction, we will be going to a price point of around 100 and I had 105 before, but 104 USD, around that region. 104 USD, and the fractal suggests by December 26th. All right, that's very interesting as well because I have on my Bitcoin price prediction for the end of the cycle 113K topping out at December 27th. Okay, and we can even if you just wanted to extend this by 2 days, it would still be in line, right? So it's very convincing. It seems like it's too much to be a coincidence. And my previous price prediction on Chainlink is around that region as well. I had about 150, but I'll tell you why this fractal could extend a little bit higher as well to match up with that previous price prediction, which makes it even less of a coincidence. So December 26th, that's just when Bitcoin is going to be topping out according to the 4-year cycle theory, according to my calculations. It makes perfect sense, right? Altcoins typically run a little bit longer than Bitcoin, so it wouldn't be surprising to see most altcoins run into January. But if Chainlink tops out on December 26th, the day before or on the same day that Bitcoin tops out, that wouldn't be surprising either because it has shown a tendency to move in ways that the rest of the market hasn't moved, right? This whole pump here, this whole massive move up here in August and September 2020, right? Yes, the market moved up in August, September 2020, not that much, right? It's moved quite uniquely to the rest of the market. It's proven that can happen. In the last bull market, it barely even moved up, right? This is a coin that doesn't really follow market trends to the T. Yes, it follows them vaguely, every coin does, but not to the T like most coins. So it wouldn't be surprising at all to see Chainlink top out with Bitcoin, especially since it's had a very large bull market. Most altcoins didn't start moving up drastically until about January or February. Chainlink has been moving up for 4 months longer than most altcoins. So, it wouldn't be surprising if the run is cut short on Chainlink, especially since, people have already secured massive gains on Chainlink. If you go to the bear market lows at around 40 cents, we can see that Chainlink's already 10x or more than that from the bear market lows. Most altcoins have not done that yet. So, 10x, 100x, sorry, not 10x, 100x. It is 100x from its bear market lows. Most altcoins have not done that yet. So people will naturally be cautious in investing in Chainlink because it has already moved up very high. So topping out slightly earlier than the rest of altcoins would be expected according to the fractal. Now, if we look at some of the indicators that suggest this fractal is playing out as well, what we can actually look at is the bull market support band, right? We can see on the bull market support band, we came down, after the capitulation here, we came down and we had this peak. We've had this peak here in September. We came down, we retested the bull market support band, we dropped below it briefly, and then we moved up. What we've done now, we've retested the bull market support band, we've dropped below it briefly, and now we should be moving up, right? Very similar stuff, right? And we can look at another thing. We can look at, for example, some of the SMAs. Take this red line, for example, very similar. We retested it briefly, we dropped below it, and then we moved up. We retested it briefly, we dropped below it, and then we moved up. Same thing as the bull market support band. The Gaussian channel as well, we can take that into account. We can say that we had this Gaussian channel here. We dropped down, we moved above, we extended above the Gaussian channel massively after a red period. Right, we extended above it massively after a massive red period. We've had that in both times. We dropped below the Gaussian very briefly, right, and we scalped the bottom of the Gaussian, basically dropping below it very briefly, and now we're moving up to the upside, right? And that's similar as well. And what we can actually bring up as well is the MACD. The MACD looks very similar, right? So what we can see on the MACD is a topping out pattern, and I want to zoom in a little bit because it's kind of hard to get the MACD to look good between longer time periods. But we topped out here on the MACD, right? We topped out here on the MACD. What we saw was a bullish MACD cross. Right, we saw a bullish MACD cross. We've seen that right now. We saw the MACD slanting bearish. Right, we had a bearish cross. We might be seeing a bearish cross right now, suggesting we have that correction before a move upwards. Right, and then from that point onwards, we moved upwards. Right, after that bearish MACD cross, we moved upwards through a bullish one. So we'll cross bullish again, and then move upwards. Right, and that will be in line with this fractal at around early November to mid-November, depending on what happens with the market. So, the point I want to make, and sorry if you didn't understand what I just said just then, this fractal is slightly confusing, but the point I'm making is that, it's definitely a convincing fractal, and it's not just convincing based off price action and resistance and support zones. It's also convincing based off the indicators. And also, I haven't even mentioned this yet, this fractal lines up perfectly with our resistance boxes here. We've had two tests of the top of a resistance box. We have a test of a support zone. We have a test of another support zone here. We have a test of resistance here, test of support here. It lines up very closely to what our, prior and existing supports and resistance zones are, which indicates that it is based in reality, right? If we bring up the weekly chart, we can get a bit of an idea of what we can expect Chainlink to do. I know I've just said this fractal would bring us to, I know I just said this fractal would bring us to around 104 USD by the end of the cycle, right? That still stays, but what we can do is we can take another metric I use for price predictions, take the fact that Chainlink reached a price of 54 USD at the same time Bitcoin reached a price of 64K, assuming Bitcoin goes to 113K, which is my price prediction, and assuming Chainlink outperforms Bitcoin by around 50%, which is what altcoins typically do to Bitcoin in bull markets, Chainlink will be going up to a price target of around $130, right? 130 USD by the end of the cycle, right? And if you put in the price prediction from the fractal as well, which is around 104 USD, you can see that my target for Chainlink, my revised target for Chainlink, is anywhere between 104 USD to 132 USD. I think that is very achievable, right? 104 USD to 130 USD by the end of the cycle, right? Most likely December 26th, December 27th, but potentially into January, right? According to the fractal, it's late December. According to cyclical theory, it's, within January somewhere. So that seems reasonable to me. And you have to keep in mind, this may seem conservative, right? From all-time highs, this is only a maximum of 141% or 92%. You have to keep in mind, Chainlink has already 100x this cycle. I don't need to say that again. It's already 100x this cycle. How high do you want this thing to go? That's just what I'd say in response to that. My big, Chainlink on the Bitcoin pair, we can look into this briefly. We have a long-term upwards trend on the Bitcoin pair. What we will actually be seeing, and we have this resistance box here at around 10,300 sats to around 8,700 sats that we will be looking to break towards the end of the year. We're holding this resistance line so far, but we've got a weekly candle closing in 20 hours that might actually bring us below this resistance. And this is why I think that, I told you there's two theories with the fractal. The first theory is that we drop down before moving upwards, and the second theory is we just go upwards. I think there's a solid chance we just go upwards from this point, right? We might have a brief correction, but in order for this weekly candle to maintain the trend of, the upwards trend on the Bitcoin pair, we will just have to go upwards and outperform Bitcoin briefly here. And I think that's the most likely scenario. So what I think is going to happen on Chainlink is a bounce upwards, retesting, rejecting off this zone, finding for support within 8,800 sats, and then moving upwards to new all-time highs. Obviously not in that time frame. This brings us to July 2022, but very quickly, before the end of the year, or potentially January, depending on when it runs to, right? So I'm bullish on Chainlink. I don't think it's going to have the same level of returns as some of my other altcoin picks, right? From current prices, however, though, you have to remember that from current prices, this is still at least 284% to 382%. So still pretty decent gains, right? But I think there are coins that are lower on the ground. But for people who are already holding Chainlink and want to buy in for swing trades, you look good, right? You look good. You're following Fractal that has many points of confirmation quite firmly. And I wanted to bring that to your attention. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.